Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kayfabe Central podcast, and welcome back to another episode of the WWE Monday Night Raw post-show review. Why is my camera doing that? There we go. Welcome back to another episode of the Monday Night Raw post-show review. It is February 2nd, 2026, which for some reason was a very confusing date for me to type in all day today. For some reason, typing 2/2/2026 just threw my brain off guard and I couldn't type it for the life of me for some reason. But we're here. It is February 2nd, 2026, and Monday Night Raw just went down. It just wrapped up. And I am going to be breaking it all down as I always do on the post shows. If you're new here, welcome back. Or welcome to the channel, I should say. And if you're returning, welcome back to the channel. You know how this works. I am messing up my intro. My brain is all over the place. We had a wild segment to end Monday Night Raw. My brain is still wrapping around that, but we're gonna break all that down when we get there. We still got a lot of other stuff to break down on Monday Night Raw. A Monday Night Raw episode that wasn't entirely bad. I think that they came out of the Royal Rumble with a solid plan. Now, there were some things on here that I was like, okay, I can do without this, and we'll jump into those things. But overall, I don't think this was a bad episode of Monday Night Raw. I think that they did a fairly solid job. Um, and the ending is something that everybody wanted to happen. So we'll get into all that stuff. Before we get into that, though, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell so you're up to date with all the videos, podcasts, and interviews that come to the channel. Check out the Kayfabe Central website. That's where all my previews are, written predictions, all that good stuff is up there on the Kayfabe Central website. Also, don't forget to check out the Kayfabe Central Discord server if you want a community to talk it up about wrestling. I stopped doing the daily polls in there, but I'm gonna start doing them again. So if that is something that interests you, make sure you go ahead and jump into the Discord server. And also check out all the social media links down in the description below. Rest of the self promo I will save for later on and the end of the show. But let's jump straight into Monday Night Raw. Of course, if you are in the live chat, drop your thoughts in the chat. I will read the chat as I go. I will get to as many as I can. So make sure you guys are dropping your thoughts in the chat. Yeah, get this as engaging as we can. Because that's why I do these live to talk to you guys. And go through to get you guys' opinions as well. Like I say all the time, I always appreciate your opinions, whether we agree or disagree. I always love hearing what you guys have to say. So even if you were watching this after the fact, make sure to drop your comments down below. But the show kicked off not with arrivals or anything like that. The show went on the air with Braun Breaker storming out to the ringside area and destroying the ringside area, tossing the announce table, tossing chairs. He threatened Corey Graves and threatened Michael Cole, who very wisely got out the way and said, "You know what? You do you, man." There was no bravery here from Corey Graves or Michael Cole, specifically Michael Cole. Thank God. That guy has gone through enough, and I think he's learned from his mistakes. Lo says Roman and Punk cooked. They absolutely did, and we will talk about that towards the end of the show. But yeah, Braun Breaker starts destroying things. He gets in the ring. The Vision comes out to try and calm him down. But Braun Breaker and Paul Heyman pretty much blame Adam Pearce for everything, for Braun Breaker being number two in the Rumble and getting attacked by the Masked Attacker, who, by the way, we had nothing on in this episode of Raw. There was nothing of advancement in terms of who this person under the mask was. So I'm curious as to what their plan is for that. Because I thought maybe the person would have interrupted the Bronson Reed Penta match, but somebody else did. And we'll get into that. But Adam Pearce comes out with security and pretty much says it's a random draw. You were the one of the first people to draw a number, and you got number two. That's just how it works. And as for the masked person, the last time a masked attacker was a thing, it was Austin Theory, and Austin Theory kind of just didn't seem bothered by the comment. And you could take that in any way you can or any way you want. I don't know who this person could be, and I really don't care enough to really throw out somebody. Like, could it be Seth Rollins? Sure. Could it be Austin Theory? Sure. Do I care? Not really. We did this story like 2 months ago, not even. I don't understand why we're doing it again. It just goes to show that it's okay, this worked out really well once, let's do it again, which is never the route that you should take when booking things and writing shows like this. But they are doing this story again, but there was nothing on it except for a mention of the person, whomever it is. I know there's a lot of people speculating about it being Logan Paul potentially. There's a lot of different names being thrown out, and I am going to tell you guys right now, do not expect anybody spectacular. Do not expect this to be like a Buddy Matthews or something like that. It's not going to be that. It's it could be Austin Theory, it could end up being Seth Rollins, but it's not going to be this grandiose thing. So if anybody is expecting this to be, oh my goodness, somebody's gonna return or debut in the WWE, it's not gonna be that, and it never will be. So, but that's how Monday Night Raw opened. Braun Breaker went to the back. Um, and then, yeah, that was the opening segment. So, yeah, Lo says Braun was about to pop a blood vessel. He really was. He came out there mad. And like I said, thank God that Corey Graves and Michael Cole got out the way because he came out there mad, and rightfully so. You get screwed over in the Rumble like that, you're of course going to be mad. Um, but we then went to the first match of the night. That was Javon Evans defeating El Grande Americano. Now, this match wasn't bad at all. I think that these two put on a pretty solid showing, and uh, towards the end of the match, we had how did we have a ref bump in this match? No, but the other El Grande Americano, original El Grande Americano, Chad Gable gets involved after Los Americanos try to get involved, and that pretty much just allows Javon Evans to capitalize. Javon Evans, who was selling a shoulder injury because the last time he faced El Grande, he suffered a legitimate injury, but they found out that it wasn't too serious. So thank God Javon Evans is okay. We've been saying this for a couple months now. This is probably just going to be El Grande Americano versus El Grande Americano at a WrestleMania. And it's unfortunate because someone like Chad Gable and Ludwig Kaiser, to be honest, should be doing a lot better things. There's many different things that these two can be doing, other than playing a luchador, which again is not the best way to go about it, and I'm very, very surprised that this El Grande Americano character is very over as it is in Mexico in AAA. So because it's over, they're gonna keep doing it. Chad Gable got a huge pop. I wonder if they're gonna have him appear on screen as Chad Gable. They should. I would assume that they should, unless they just keep going with this El Grande Americano thing, which I wouldn't be surprised if they do. But Javon Evans does pick up the win there. We then had a promo. Gunther comes out to AJ Styles' music and does this whole entrance, and damn production gives him the pyro and everything that AJ would get. And then it switches to his music, and then he makes his way down to the ring for his promo. Man, Gunther is just amazing. Like, he is doing so good in this role. And like I texted Los while this was going on. I'm like, just give this man Gunther everything at this point because he's just so good at this. And it's like, man, like the fact that this guy's not going to be in a title match at WrestleMania kind of blows my mind. I know he's been involved in title matches the past couple years at WrestleMania, but this he just feels like a guy that should be involved in a championship match almost every year at WrestleMania. Now, obviously, that's not realistic. Even people like Roman Reigns last year wasn't involved in a title match, so that's fine. Um, it's gonna be interesting to see who he ends up wrestling at WrestleMania. there's speculation, like among fans going around that it could be Randy Orton, which is very likely a possibility, and that's a match that I see Gunther losing because I don't think Randy Orton is ready to hang up the boots yet. But he pretty much makes fun of retiring AJ Styles, John Cena, and Goldberg. Dragon Lee then comes out, no music, and just is awkwardly running down the ramp. I thought it was a fan, to be honest, because he just was running down the ramp. They didn't pan to him or anything. All you see is just a little luchador running down the ramp towards Gunther, and I'm like, is that a fan? I'm like, oh no, that's Dragon Lee. And Dragon Lee comes out. He fights Gunther. He does a handful of moves to Gunther until he's hit by the ring bell by Gunther, and then choked out on the apron, and then Gunther just leaves Dragon Lee there. So that's obviously going to be Dragon Lee versus Gunther next week on Monday Night Raw. Dragon Lee obviously defending his former tag partner AJ Styles. Um, I was kind of hoping for something a little bit bigger here. A potential WrestleMania opponent for Gunther to interrupt him. But obviously, they want to wait for that. It's either that or they actually don't know who they want Gunther to face at WrestleMania yet, and they could just be playing it by week. Like, okay, Gunther will do this week, this week, and there'll come to a week be like, okay, maybe we can do this for his WrestleMania opponent, and it's gonna be like 2 weeks away from WrestleMania. I hope that's not what they do, but it's very likely what they do if they don't fully know what they want to do with Gunther yet at WrestleMania. I say this all the time. You should have your WrestleMania plans the night after the previous WrestleMania. Like the night after WrestleMania, you should have next year's WrestleMania at least in your head, not written down or anything. Be like, oh, but okay, I want this person to be wrestling that person, this person to be wrestling that person, etc. Um, that's just the way I think about it. That's the way that it should be booked and should be written. That way, you get a lot of long-term storytelling and you figure out ways to get to those stories, not figure out WrestleMania 75 nights before the event. And while 75 nights is sounds like a lot of time, realistically, it's not. Um, you should be planning WrestleMania far, far ahead of time. So hopefully they do know what they're doing with Gunther. Um, Backstage, Adam Pearce was approached by Paul Heyman, who demands he makes a match tonight between Braun Breaker and LA Knight. But Pearce says he can't do that because he just escorted LA Knight out of the arena, and he recommends Paul Heyman does the same thing with Braun Breaker. That doesn't work out very well later on in the night because Paul Heyman did try to escort Braun Breaker out, but Braun Breaker just left on his own will, just yelling at Paul Heyman, and then left the arena anyway. So, um, yeah, that was that. So that was that segment. Nothing too much there. Paul Heyman then questions Adam Pearce actually if he knows who he's dealing with in which city, and the crowd pops for that. And Adam Pearce just responds with FAFO. So a little bit of, past history there being presented for Paul Heyman in Philadelphia, as it always is. You can't not acknowledge the history that Paul Heyman has in Philadelphia with ECW. So it's always cool. And the Philly crowd is always going to appreciate that. Um, the War Raiders then came out. So I was very confused at first about this because I'm like, okay, they didn't announce much for this episode of Raw, but I did not anticipate the War Raiders coming out. I keep forgetting that they're a part of the Raw tag roster because they have done such a terrible job at building the War Raiders. They won the tag titles once, um, and that was it. After they lost to the New Day at WrestleMania, that was it. Um, so I was like, okay, maybe this is gonna be a War Raiders squash match, and maybe they get back in the rankings or whatever. Not the case. Obafemi comes out and obliterates the War Raiders, and I'm talking like just outright dismantles them. Ivar, I've never seen Ivar get spine busted that high before. I didn't think that was possible for a man his size. I didn't think anybody could throw Eric that far. Um, Obafemi just comes out and he beats the hell out of the War Raiders and he leaves. So this is a very Brock Lesnar type introduction for Obafemi because if we remember when Brock Lesnar first came in, they had him go out there and destroy tag teams and win handicap matches and whatnot. That's how they introduced Brock Lesnar. And it seems like that's how they're introducing Obafemi. But man, a team like the War Raiders, like the War Raiders, I like because they actually are very talented. If you go back and watch their NXT Black and Gold stuff, man, those guys had some banger tag team matches. But ever since they came up to the main roster, it just has not been good luck for them. So I question the future for the War Raiders in the WWE. I don't know the extents and details of their contracts or anything like that, but it doesn't look good for them. It doesn't seem like WWE really has interest in using them or anything. Um, and the War Raiders are one of those teams now where it's like they come out and the crowd's not excited. And that's not because they're not talented. It's because WWE hasn't made us care. They haven't done anything with the War Raiders to make us care. So anytime they come out, I'm just like, oh, okay, this is just gonna be a tag match or it's gonna be whatever. Um, I do like this how Obafemi was presented though. If you're not gonna do anything with the War Raiders, I guess this is fine. Um, yeah, Obafemi looks like a monster coming onto the main roster, and as he should after a dominant Royal Rumble performance like he had. I believe it was 40 minutes that he lasted, or 38. I think he lasted like just about the same amount of time as Javon Evans, if not a little bit less. But because I think they were saying that Javon Evans was the Iron Man with like 40 minutes, and I think Obafemi was like 38 or 39 or something like that. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it was along those lines. Um, so yeah, that was that. Obafemi just destroys the War Raiders. We had a vignette about Finn Balor talking about the lack of respect he receives in the WWE, which I mean, he's tell me when he's telling lies, right? But that's all we get for Finn Balor tonight. We get a vignette. We actually get two vignettes for Finn Balor. One of them is this one. One is later on in the night when he's talking about his time in NXT. I don't understand these vignettes though, because they're not making a whole lot of sense, especially when he's talking about NXT. I'm like, okay, are you going to go back to NXT, but you're feuding with Punk? I don't understand what's going on here with Finn Balor. I don't even think WWE knows what they're doing with Finn Balor. Clearly they want to do something with him and Punk. Maybe Finn Balor gets involved with Roman and Punk. I know it kind of spoiled what happens later on in the night, but maybe they do something with that. Um, but we have to see where it goes. Maybe it's just a case of Punk just beats Finn Balor at Elimination Chamber, and that's the end of the feud. Um, we then have the Bella Twins come out. The Bella Twins come out, and they say uh, firstly, before we get into that, Nikki pretty much just talks about her boyfriend that's on the Eagles, and that's a Pro Bowler. I can't even remember his name. That's how important he is. And I can't stress enough of how much I do not care. I don't care to see the Bella Twins on my screen in 2026. I really, really don't. And I have said this multiple times before. The Bella Twins, I think Brie is the better wrestler than Nikki. I don't think Nikki Bella can wrestle, but as a whole, the Bella Twins, it doesn't interest me. Sorry, Bella Army. I don't care. And whether you guys want to come at me the same way you guys came at me for Kairi Sane, which Kairi Sane was a different story because I wasn't saying anything negative about her except the fact that she's getting sloppy in the ring. But I don't care. They want to go after the tag titles, and there was nothing to this segment except them saying that they want to go after the women's tag team championships, which could have just been a vignette, and you could have given someone like Finn Balor TV time instead. But no, we want to get the Bella Twins out there in front of a crowd so they can get the pop and cut a nothing promo. Let me tell you guys something. For anybody that doesn't understand this, a promo is supposed to promote something. This didn't promote anything. This didn't promote if it promoted anything, it promoted Nikki Bella's boyfriend on the Philadelphia Eagles. That's all it promoted. We knew that the Bella Twins were gonna come back for the women's tag team championships. We knew that's why they were back. I thought at least Bailey and Lyra might interrupt because they're the ones that they eliminated from the Royal Rumble, but we didn't even get that. We didn't even get, something that could happen next week. Be like, okay, it's gonna be the Bella Twins versus Bailey and Lyra next week. I'd be like, okay, sure. But we didn't even get that. We just got a completely nothing promo from these two. Um, yeah, it's I can't even tell if they're supposed to be heel or babyface either. Because Bree is like hyping up the crowd, but Nikki's acting, kind of weird. I don't know. Um, it, it's it's very, very weird what they're doing with the Bella Twins. Um, and I just don't think it's gonna be that great. Are they going to win the tag titles? Probably, because it's the Bella Twins, and they probably want to have it in the record books that the Bella Twins have won the women's tag team titles. Um, we then went to Penta and Bronson Reed. Penta defeated Bronson Reed by countout with some help from LA Knight after a ref bump. The ref takes a very awkward ref bump, and then Bronson Reed goes out to grab a chair and is stopped by LA Knight. Now, here's where I thought where the masked attacker was going to be because I'm like, okay, the masked attacker is going to show up. He's going to cost Bronson Reed. But it was LA Knight who supposedly left the building and then hits Bronson Reed with a BFT onto the chair, allowing the count out victory for Penta. Penta is on the stage celebrating as if he pinned Bronson Reed. Um, I feel like if you're a babyface, you shouldn't want a win like that. And like usually I understand the logic of the babyface being mad at the other babyface because he cost them the match and he could have pinned Bronson Reed and whatnot, but it was what it was. I figured that neither of these men can take a clean loss and it was just going to be a DQ of some sorts. And that's pretty much what it was. Bronson Reed didn't get pinned, so it doesn't like completely diminish anything he's doing. Um, so yeah, that was that. I really don't have much else to say about that. Before the counter and stuff, pretty solid match. Pretty solid bumps. Some stiff shots in this match as well. Bronson Reed dominated most of it, but Penta unleashed a pretty nice comeback and some pretty nice spots here. But other than that, it was your typical Monday Night Raw, middle of the card type of match. Um, we then had Dominic Mysterio return to Monday Night Raw. He returns to introduce Liv Morgan. I texted Los, Dominic Mysterio is back. Life is good again. Because man, it's good to see Dom back. It's good to see that he's better. He's not injured anymore from what we know because he did. I did see the promo he did for AAA that says that's where he said that he's going to face Vikingo for the Mega Championship. So that just signals to me that he is cleared and he showed up here. So usually they don't allow wrestlers in the ring if they're not cleared. So it's good to see Dominic Mysterio back and he introduces Liv Morgan. Liv says she doesn't know who she's going to pick for WrestleMania and she might even go to SmackDown to assess the landscape. She then introduces Raquel Rodriguez, who she believes is going to win the Women's World Championship and beat Stephanie Vaquera tonight. But Raquel asks the good questions. I feel like this is something Raquel does very well. Like, she's always the logical one. She's always asking the actual logical questions. She gets in there and she's like, yeah, that's good and all, but why did you eliminate me from the Royal Rumble? And Liv in her, typical gaslighting character, pretty much just says, well, I won the Royal Rumble, so, a win for one is a win for all in the Judgment Day, and, you can win the Women's World Championship tonight. I can go to WrestleMania and whatnot. Raquel agrees, but then tells Liv to stay in the back and not get involved in her match. Liv agrees and then skips out of the ring, and that takes us to the Philadelphia Street fight for the Women's World Championship between Fat Care and Raquel Rodriguez. Did Liv Morgan listen? Of course she didn't. It's wrestling. Anytime somebody tells their teammate to stay in the back, they never ever stay in the back. That's never the case. Um, I would like a case of, the partner tells them to stay in the back and they actually do stay in the back. That would make my night. That would be amazing. Um, but Stephanie Vaquer defeats Raquel Rodriguez to retain. Now, there was a good chance of Raquel Rodriguez winning the title here. There definitely was, and it's definitely the best chance that she's had out of all the other title matches she's had with Stephanie. But I still went with Stephanie here because I didn't see them taking it off of her. I do think that they want to do Liv versus Fat Care. After the match, Liv Morgan did hit Stephanie with an Oblivion and was holding the title up. So that kind of signals that's the route that they want to go. I can't see a world in where Liv Morgan challenges Jade Cargill. Um, neither Roman or Liv, by the way, mentioned the NXT title, so that's completely out of the picture. Not like they were gonna choose them anyway, but it's nice when they acknowledge the NXT titles. Like, I could go over to NXT and choose an NXT champion, but at the end of the day, why, as a superstar who just won the Royal Rumble, would want to go after a developmental title? So but it is nice sometimes just to have NXT acknowledged. But yeah, Liv holds up the title over Vaquer, drops the title on Vaquer very aggressively. And that is not a light title. None of these titles are light. But that's definitely the route that they're going. Liv didn't say verbally that she's choosing Stephanie Vaquer, but sometimes actions speak louder than words. Um, we then went to the final segment of the night. I kind of just breezed through this card. Um, Roman Reigns comes out. He comes out, and we got a lot to break down here, ladies and gentlemen. We got a lot to break down in this segment. He recalls his history in Philadelphia from winning his first Royal Rumble back in 2015. The crowd cheered, and he's like, it didn't sound like that. He won his first WWE championship in Philadelphia and obviously lost his last championship in Philadelphia to Cody Rhodes. Um, so he recalls all of that and he asks the fans for help on who to choose for WrestleMania. Does he choose Drew McIntyre or does he choose CM Punk? The crowd very clearly favors the CM Punk option. And that triggers CM Punk to interrupt. CM Punk comes out and he looks at Roman and then goes to the camera in the corner and says, Finn Balor, I am going to hurt you. He pretty much says he's going to get his hands on Finn Balor, and Roman Reigns again is asking the logical questions like, you came out here to interrupted me to talk about Finn Balor. I mean that was pretty disrespectful, Phil. That definitely was a little bit disrespectful. You walk right past the OTC and you talk about Finn Balor. Um, but Punk says, interrupt you? This is my show. You're a guest on my show. Um, and then we go to CM Punk telling Roman to take the easy way out and pick Drew McIntyre. And Roman says, Drew is 4 times bigger than you. And he reminds CM Punk that he was crying over a little plastic bracelet, the same plastic bracelet CM Punk had on his wrist in this segment. Um, and then Punk says he put Drew in the dirt. He beat Drew McIntyre in the most devastating match we have in the WWE in Hell in a Cell. Um, and Punk brings up the bloodline and Roman's cousins, and Roman says the bloodline is the only reason the WWE is where it's at, and the reason why CM Punk had a company to come back to. He pretty much says that the higher ups came to Roman about the decision for CM Punk to come back, and he gave the okay. Um, and CM Punk then fires back by saying, Roman Reigns followed in his footsteps because he brought the Shield in. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about that for a second. Because if we remember correctly, CM Punk wanted Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and Cassius Ohno. That's the three he wanted. He did not pick Roman Reigns. And if we're talking realistically here, CM Punk did not pick Roman Reigns. WWE picked Roman Reigns for the Shield. But that's neither here nor there, right? Punk brings that up, saying how he brought the Shield and Roman into the WWE, and Roman followed his footsteps. He reminds Roman that he was champion for 434 days with Paul Heyman by his side, and says, "Does that sound a little bit familiar?" Um, Punk then says Roman chooses to be a part-timer while he chooses to go to 10 countries and go to all over the world. Um, and he tells Roman pretty much that he's a part-timer, I'm a full-timer, I'm a f fighting champion. Um, and Roman says the only reason you're making all these towns is because you took a 10-year vacation. Um, kind of spit in there, kind of spit in there. And the only thing that he learned from Punk is what not to do. Um, Roman reminds CM Punk he showed him respect at Survivor Series when he shook his hand like a man, and CM Punk threw it back in his face and disrespected him, disrespected his family, took his wise man from him, brainwashed his cousins, almost brainwashed him. Um, and then Roman Reigns makes the decision. He says, I'm going to choose you at WrestleMania. And I'm not choosing you because of anything else. I'm choosing you because I hate you. So, Roman Reigns chooses CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. I I'm going to be completely honest. This segment, by the way, great segment. Great segment. I was very sports entertained by this segment. Very sports entertained by this segment. I think like when it comes to the mic, you're not gonna top these two. These two are always gonna give you a good segment on the mic, and like that's always gonna be the case. Here's my problem. It goes back to the Royal Rumble. I would not have had Roman win the Royal Rumble. I've said that multiple times, and as good as this segment was, the rest of these 75 nights of this build for Roman and CM Punk, it doesn't interest me. It doesn't interest me as it interests a whole lot of other people. The Cody and Roman thing that I thought was gonna happen didn't intrigue me either. And I am interested in to see where that goes now, and maybe Drew does take that into WrestleMania now that Roman is not going after that title. Um, in a perfect world, I would have Roman and Fatu for a world title. But that's obviously not going to happen. I'm still not fully sold on this Roman Punk thing. We had this last year, and I know people are going to tell me, "Oh, it was a triple threat." We still had Roman and Punk involved. We still had segments with them. Um, and it's just almost going to be a repeat of last year, just without Seth Rollins. So that's that. And like that whole thing was based on CM Punk taking Paul Heyman from Roman Reigns. So technically, up until the finish of the triple threat of WrestleMania, it was CM Punk and Roman. And Seth Rollins was kind of just there until WrestleMania happened and Seth aligned with Paul Heyman and won that triple threat at WrestleMania. That's when it became about Seth. The entire time, it was mainly focused on Roman Reigns and CM Punk. So we kind of had this last year, which is why it doesn't fully interest me. But if you give me the options, if you said, all right, your options are Roman Cody, Roman Drew, Roman Punk. If you give me those three options, I'm gonna have to go Roman Punk. That's probably the better option. Roman and Drew would have been much less interesting. Roman Cody is not ready to happen yet for a third time. You got to go with CM Punk. At least you're gonna get some good segments out of it, probably like the one we got tonight. But and hopefully it's a good match at WrestleMania. I have no doubt that it probably will be. But I don't have any like full interest in this. Maybe they change my mind. Maybe they do something completely crazy. Like if stuff like this would happen tonight, segments like this, keep evolving, then maybe I'll be like, okay, now they've got me hooked a little bit. But right now, it's like, all right, that was a good segment. You got 75 more nights to go, though. You got a lot more weeks to go. You still got the Elimination Chamber. You still got to deal with Finn Balor in this situation. How are you going to handle that? I can imagine Roman Reigns is going to take a few weeks off from now, and then he's going to come back after the Chamber, and then he might show up the Raw after Chamber, might have another segment, and then he's not going to be back until the go home show for WrestleMania. That's just how this is going to go. That's why I have no interest in it because he is a part timer, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with that, but when you're building to WrestleMania, you're building for your world title main event. That's when it kind of becomes a problem. So unless Roman Reigns is going to be showing up weekly, uh, he's not going to be, then I don't have much interest in this as everybody else does. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe, I'm just being crazy and, oh, Josh hates everything. But I don't I like this segment. I will say that. And I will continue saying that. I like this segment. I liked the back and forth that they had. But are we really gonna, go through like, many more weeks of this? Probably not even because Roman's probably not gonna be here, and they're probably gonna focus on Punk and Finn, and we're gonna forget that Punk and Roman is even happening at WrestleMania, unless they show the graphic or they're like, oh, Finn Balor could beat Punk, and then Finn can face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I kind of liked when they took their time with the decision. If there was somebody else involved, they got that person over with at the Elimination Chamber, and then after the Royal Rumble winner makes their decision, like, okay, you're still the champion. I want to face you. In kayfabe, um, Roman has chosen Punk. He's chosen the World Heavyweight Championship. Who's to say Finn Balor doesn't beat CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship? In kayfabe, obviously, it's not going to happen. But who's to say that doesn't happen? Then what? Then what do we do? A triple threat? Do we get Finn versus Roman? Like, these are the things that don't make a whole lot of sense to me, and things that need to be cleaned up a little bit. Um, but overall, Monday Night Raw was a solid episode. I know I kind of sound like I'm hating on everything. That's not the case. I enjoyed Monday Night Raw tonight. And I think it was fairly entertaining. There were, like I said, there was a few things that I didn't enjoy and I didn't care for. And I'm intrigued to see how they push this Punk and Roman feud for a second year in a row. This time it's one-on-one, so maybe it's a little bit different. But yeah, other than that, fine enough episode of Monday Night Raw, solid enough episode, I should say. Fine enough sounds like it was like meh. It wasn't it was solid. It was a solid episode of Monday Night Raw. And definitely one I would tell you to go watch back because there were some important things that happened on the show. There were also some things that, you could skip over, you could find on TikTok or something like that. Um, it's mainly that final segment of the show, mainly that. Hair retaining the women's world title and it's whatever. Like literally, you could probably just go on YouTube and find this segment. They're probably gonna post a full segment anyway because it's Roman and Punk. So, if you watch that, you're pretty much caught up on a lot of what's going on. But that is the Monday Night Raw post show. I got through that pretty quickly. More like I feel like I got that through that quicker than I usually do, but I think I'm used to having Rue on here. But make sure you guys are dropping your thoughts in the live chat if you're still in the live chat and dropping your thoughts after the fact as we are on the final stretch of this post-show review. Before I close out though, I almost forgot to give a shout out to our very special sponsor. If you are feeling tired, if you need some pre-workout, whatever the case may be, if you need to just go at your day with full energy, W Energy is the place to go. Go to the W Energy website. You can get any W product for 10% off using the code Kayfabe Central. It is in the link down below. Make sure you guys go check that link out if you want some energy, you want a pre-workout, whatever the case may be. Maybe you're streaming all day, maybe you're playing video games all day, maybe you're going out with somebody all day. Maybe you're going out with your wife and you need the energy to handle her. W Energy has got you, and you can get it for 10% off with the code Kayfabe Central. So make sure you guys go check that out in the link in the description. But yeah, that is going to close this out for the Monday Night Raw post show. I appreciate everybody popping in, whoever did. Shout out to Los as well, a very good friend of mine, and he always supports the channel, always supports my pages. So big shout out to him as well. And shout out to everybody else who supports the page. Rue mentioned it the other day. We hit 100 subscribers. I wasn't going to say anything until he did. So I appreciate all the support and love that you guys show. So thank you very much. But I will be back on Wednesday with the AEW Dynamite post-show review. We don't have any PLEs or pay-per-views this weekend from what I know. So there won't be any Predictabell or anything this week. So I will be back on Wednesday with that Dynamite post-show review. But I am going to call it a night for tonight. Thank you everybody once again for joining. I will see you guys on Wednesday for the Dynamite post show. And until then, take it easy.